HomeShow Garden Pros, helping to turn your thumb green.
Green thumbs, that's what we do. These may not look green, but I do good with plants. No, hey, I'm Danny Milliken. I am here to help you improve your gardening game, and that's what we do here. That's what we do here on Home Show Garden Pros. We dish out great gardening advice, greenify the thumbs, if you will. And it's a live radio show, so that's kind of the fun thing is that you can catch us on Sports Radio 610. Every Saturday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. So that's the home of the Texans, and we're there. We're also here doing, TV-style broadcasts to help you be a better gardener. So doesn't that sound nice, to be helped be a better gardener? The show is possible because there's a bunch of incredible one-stop garden centers, mom-and-pop places that are just destination, beautiful places to buy plants, soil, all that stuff. And they really are the ones dishing out the gardening information on the radio show. They do such a great job. We do a little rotation through them. This Saturday is Sherry Hara from Plants for All Seasons. Some of the other co-op members are from Enchanted Gardens and Enchanted Forest down there, Richmond, Texas area. Nelson Nursery and Water Gardens in Katy, beautiful spot. Really Katie's go-to gardening spot over there. They also have a lot of cool water gardening stuff. So if you want a fountain, it really is the place to go. And also up in Kingwood, you have Warren Southern Gardens and their sister shop, Kingwood Garden Center. Really cool stuff, and we're always doing our best to help you get better at gardening. I'm always improving because there's so much information, so many people with experience, and that's what we're here to put in front of you. So this kind of Home Show Garden Pros sort of live event, we bring in people from gardening clubs, from nonprofits, from training gardening groups to try to help give out great gardening advice. And this week, the wonderful Chris LaChance, master naturalist Chris LaChance. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Hey, good, Danny. How are you?
I am good, but you don't just do master naturalist stuff. You also do a lot of stuff with Houston Botanic Gardens, Armand Bayou Nature Center. You're busy.
Yes, I am. Try to keep myself out of trouble, as hard as that is.
Well, staying busy is a great way to do it. So those of you who are getting in lots of trouble, maybe you could learn from Chris here. So
yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So what's happening over at Armand Bayou these days?
Well, stuff is popping there, just like everywhere else. So for those of you who don't know about Armand Bayou Nature Center, it's a 2,300-acre preserve on the southeast side of Houston, and it backs up. The property backs up to NASA. And there's so many wonderful things to do, especially when we've had this pandemic going on. So get out there, get out in nature, walk the trails, take a pontoon boat ride, do some kayaking. Just a great place. And of course, Houston Botanic Garden is just up the road, and talk about a great place to go to see plants that are either native to Houston, native to other parts of the world, but really just a rainbow of wonderful plant choices that might work in your yard. And just like everybody coming out of the freeze, you can pop over there and see how the garden's doing there, and seeing what's happening there. And of course, the Texas Master Naturalists, I've been with them for a long time, and they do all kinds of wonderful things, restorations and classes, and so it's the Galveston Bay Area chapter of the Master Naturalists. So yeah,
nice. That is awesome.
Stuff happening.
Yeah, no doubt. And the Armand Bayou Nature Center is so cool because it really is like a state park down there. You get down there, there's so much nature involved, but it's not like forests. It's a bunch of aquatic sort of scene. So it's a great place to go spend several hours just kind of wandering around, and really cool spot.
Yes.
One of Houston's sort of best kept secrets.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a forest habitat, there's a prairie habitat ecosystem, which has been years in the restoration, and then the wetlands and the bayou. So just a whole list of things to do and to experience, and learn about how things are, in the natural area around Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you're a master naturalist. tell us a little bit, tell the good people a little bit what that means and how to become one. Because to me, it's one of the best trainings in town for improving kind of your understanding of the natural world and plants.
Sure. Well, it is. It takes you through all the ecosystem, so you really learn uh, about um, about the natural world and really from a real world perspective. And what's great about being a master naturalist is that you actually get to do on the ground projects, like as I said, restorations and you know, getting down to Galveston Bay and getting down to the beach. And so, yeah, so just a whole lot of wonderful activities to get you right out in nature.
Absolutely. It's amazing stuff. And, it's one reason a lot of people garden. And, people find success in the garden to be a great access to nature. And it really is a lot of those food webs, a lot of those arrangements, nature kind of invading your space. So many cool things happening that way. And, we're here to kind of talk gardening. So do want to remind you that we have kind of these great emails from our listeners, and they have sent an email to our website, homeshowgardenpros.com. A couple may be lifted from this very same Facebook page that you might be watching on. And, we call those out, we pick some out, and especially ones that we seem like are really present to the moment. But we'd love to answer your questions coming in via comment. And so we want to, kind of put those up to the front and help you out that way. And so we got a question from Alfred here. I'm going to read it. It's over on this screen over here, so I'm going to look away for a second. Alfred from Sealy. Hello. How long should you wait to see if any palms or plants come back before replacing from the freeze? So what's your take on that, Chris?
I waited just as long as I could, and there are and good thing too, because there are some plants that I definitely thought were toast, but I can see life at the bottom of the plant. And yeah, so I would say, probably about now, I would say it's time to start checking to see for, if there's life there. I'm not that familiar with palms, but with other plants, especially the ones with woody stems. And you've probably all heard this as well. As you scratch the bark, start at the end, and see if you see green. And once you hit the green, that tells you that's the kind of the growing point, so you can trim back there. On some of my plants, I had to go pretty far down to say 4 or 5 inches to cut back. But now I'm getting rewarded with seeing new green at the bottom. So yeah.
Well, that is wonderful. That's hope. And, with palms, it is hard. The big area of concern is the crown, the very tip where the new green growths, flop out, if you will. And, you want to check that. If it's a big, super tall palm, it's worth having an arborist come out and check them out. Those plants can be $5,000 or $6,000, and worth maybe have someone do a checkup on it if it's still alive. A lot of times they will tighten around their crown, and the freeze won't kill it, but the tightening will. So something to be aware of with your big palms. If they're within reach, you can always see them. Maybe even get a knife, like a long kitchen knife, and poke around there and see if you can uncover any growing crown that might be in there. Citrus are a big concern for a lot of people, and this month will tell us. If you get all the way through April and you're not seeing anything and the plant seems a little bit dry, you can do that scratch test down low, but if it's not moist down at the bottom, it's probably not going to make it back. So keep that in mind. On your citrus too, you don't really want that graft coming up. You don't want those roots growing from down there, and so pay attention to the graft line. So hope that helps, Alfred. It's tough. We're all in this together, so definitely know that it can be brutal. But hold out hope for your palms for sure. Now, Sealy, much colder than in the heart of Houston, and so depending on the palm, my brother lives in Brenham, which Sealy's about the same temperature, maybe a couple degrees warmer, but he was at 6, and so that's cold. 6 is
That's
like
cold, yeah.
that's really, really wildly cold. So anyway,
Can I show you
So-
one of my success stories?
Yes, I was about to bring that up. So, really cool because Chris and I were talking, and she's like, "Well, can we give people some good news? Can we show them some of these like things that are making it through the freeze? Maybe ideas for later on." So, yeah, let's see the first success story.
Look at this. So this is, boop, boop. There we go. Okay. So this is a
We just
a
put it
Texas
right by your
buckeye. It's one
face.
of right by my face.
There it is. Yeah, look at that. That's
There.
nice. It's like you're
There
hiding
we
in
go.
it.
All right.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's a Texas buckeye, native to East Texas, and it does have these kind of these beautiful chestnut nuts in the fall, but also has these gorgeous, kind of hot pink blossoms right now. And
Wow.
what's great about that is that either hummingbirds starting their trek back north, or just some of our pollinators that are desperately looking for some place to find some food. There you go. You've got a beautiful. It's a small tree, or it could be considered a large shrub, but it's absolutely lovely. There you go.
And they did fine in the freeze. Did totally fine.
It did.
Wow.
Yes. Yep. Did fine.
That's so cool. The way
And,
you're holding it, it kind of looks like that it's a puppet, and you're gonna have it talk here soon. No,
do
that's
that.
okay. That's okay.
I
Yeah.
can do that. I'm multi-talented. Just so you know.
Well, that's great. Wow, because yeah, puppets are a talent for sure. Well, that's great. That's awesome. I'm super happy to see that. The flowers on that are absolutely gorgeous. So, I guess that's in the shrub category. And so, those of you,
Yeah.
do you know if you can prune that at all? If you can keep it to a certain size, or if you just got to let it go?
I've had it for 4 years, and I haven't really had to do anything. Now it does in say late July, early August. It does lose its foliage. So what
Sure.
I've done is I plant something kind of in front of it, so that will kind of screen, the bare branches. But then, it starts to come right back, and then by fall, have some leaves again. So, but it's just one of my favorites, and it's a Texas native. So what more could you want?
Well, we'll keep that in mind for one of our questions, but we'll have to get another answer too, obviously, for the question. So, well, that's awesome. So what's the next success? You want to do that now, or you want to go on to some questions?
Another tree. I have an example of another tree. And
Yeah,
then we'll
let's
go
do
on.
it. All right. Okay, good. Let's see
All right,
this.
okay.
Tree number 2.
So, okay, number 2.
Oh, fringe
Isn't it
tree.
beautiful. Yes, and it's a Texas fringe tree.
Okay.
So there's a Chinese fringe tree too, which is probably it might be a little bit larger, but I love the more of the free form of the Texas fringe tree. So it's gorgeous, yes. And once again, one of the early bloomers. So to really get to the hummers and especially all our pollinators looking for something to eat. So yeah.
Yeah, and I know that
Yep.
Texas fringe trees all did fine from this freeze. They are a wild plant,
Yes.
and so if you're a real curator
Yep.
gardener, there's something maybe to not get too into. But if you can get them in the place and kind of leave them alone for a little bit, they can be very, very beautiful and rewarding. And they have cool bark, so that's another cool element with
Yes.
fringe trees.
Yes.
I know bark gardening is not as in vogue as in my mind, but I do love a good bark.
Absolutely. Especially if it has chocolate on it, then it's really dynamite.
Yeah, I was thinking that you were going to go with a dog joke, but the candy joke is just as accepted.
No
You
candy.
know what I mean? So as long as it's better than its bite, am I right? Anyway,
go.
enough with the bark jokes. We're going to get on to some gardening questions here. I love those 2 example trees. Here we go. Question number 1. This is from Elizabeth. She says, is there an effective pest control for crane fly, June bugs, and crickets in the lawn? So that's an interesting question, Elizabeth. Here we are.
Okay,
Chris?
Can I jump in? All right.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
So crane flies are pretty benign. I mean, they don't bite. They're just kind of goofy looking. They remind me of a daddy long legs with wings. They just kind of flop around. So they don't, they're they're very harmless, and I think they only are more prevalent in spring. But the other thing for the other critters, here's where I'm going to give out a shout out to one of our local mammals, and that's a possum.
Okay.
Because yeah, because the other critters that she mentioned, the crickets and well, and also roaches.
Ooh.
Those adorable little possums munch on all those things that we just are so squeamish about. So if you see possums in your yard, just invite them in.
Yeah, they love the
Well,
crunchiness.
not in your house, but I'm in your yard.
I did I did have one in the house one time, but we won't go into that too much. I'll tell you another time. But we have a doggy door, and they're smart. Anyway, they like the
Yeah.
crunch of all those insects. So June bugs, they eat live June bugs. Now
I
everybody
get it. I
likes,
get it. I like
yeah,
crunchy.
right, yeah, no doubt. That's why Cheetos are so popular. But they love dog food, and so if you can just on the very back corner of your yard, make a little stand for them and put some dog food on it, and you'll get possums in. And the great thing they do is they keep squirrels away. So the best squirrel deterrent is a possum. So that's really great. I will say this about Elizabeth's question is that I'm not sure any of those bugs are pests, that any of them are really problematic.
Right.
The grubs from June
I
bugs,
agree.
if you have a huge overabundance, that really points to a lack of nutrition in the soil and a lack of diversity. And so the best way to kind of reduce those numbers is a compost top dressing. But crane flies, literally, their larvae eat mosquito larvae. Like, this is one of the great beneficials we've got in early
I
spring.
didn't know that.
Yeah, their larvae is actually aquatic. So I did see an article that somebody wrote, "Are crane fly larvae hurting your lawn?" And the answer was no in the article. But the article titles, it's like, come on, article title, like, don't say that. Anyway, so those crane flies are beneficial. The crickets, if you have them in abundance, you have too much thatch, and that means you have a lack of diversity. So yet again, you've got a detrivore, and so compost top dress. So Elizabeth, that's my advice to you is compost top dress. Those of you that watch or listen a lot, you may be shocked I'm giving that advice, but that's the best thing to do to kind of keep some of these critters at bay is adding diversity. Removing their food source, that's usually a huge thing when it comes to pest populations. But take crane flies off your list. Now, Chris, your description of them as daddy longlegs with wings probably terrified most of the people that are watching. And so these are just big flies. They're frilly.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
I think they actually don't even really feed. And so they're not eating they're not eating anything. They're just kind of like living and laying new larvae for the future, but they want aquatic sources. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. All right, next question. I'm not going to go read this just yet. Sorry, Mark. But the bugs are good. Right, Chris? Just bugs are good.
Oh my goodness, there are millions of more beneficial insects than there are pests. If we think about that, and really not be so quick to kill any kind of insect and figure out what it is first before you decide what you want to do with it. But really, nature is wonderful, and nature knows what to do. And if we let the good bugs do their job, then we don't have to resort to, or I hope we never resort to any kind of, really strong chemical fertilizers or pesticides.
Yeah, and just almost all of them are like the crane fly. They're totally irrelevant to your garden and you. More of them are beneficial than they are problematic, and so just keep that in mind as you're considering what to do with bug number A. A is not a number, but you know what I mean. So, okay, sorry, Mark. We're going to go on to the next question now. And you know what?
One
No,
more
I'm
thing
just
now.
kidding.
Yeah, okay. One more thing about beneficial insects, though.
Okay.
That's what the all the birds are. That's what the birds are eating, and even our sweet little hummingbirds that we love to watch, when they are in the breeding season, they are eating insects. So, okay. So with that, I will let you go on.
Well, thank you. It was in my fault, really. But okay, Tom has a question. We've teased it twice now, and we're going to go to it. Here we go. What should I put on my grass to kill weeds? I have not put anything on it for about a year, and the kids and dog have worn it down. The weeds are overtaking the St. Augustine. From Tom. So what's your thought there? I have some thoughts, but I'd love to hear yours, Chris.
Well, and I mean, it just sounds like the soil is probably lacking a lot of nutrients and not much for the St. Augustine to, if it is, yes, it is St. Augustine, um, you know, to grow on. So once again, I would use that C word, compost, and get that in there. What other amendments might you put on there, Danny?
Well, on the amendment front, the Microlife Humates Plus is incredible. Nature's Way Resources Compost is phenomenal for this setting. They're just regular fertilizer from Microlife. The 624 is great. So those are all great things to do. And a big thing here is a couple thoughts on the old kids and dogs notion, right? Is that, you know, your kids and dogs are using the lawn. So you don't want to put anything out to kill the weeds. It's going to kill your kids and your dog. I mean, those are a little more high value items than, you know, the lawn is. So just keep that in mind. Also, I think Tom might be giving the kids and the dogs a little bit too much credit. The freeze and compaction from our severe weather events may be causing more damage to the lawn than the kids and the dogs are. And so that's really where it's like compost top dress, make it a point to try to do that 2 or 3 times this year, Tom, and then follow up with safe fertilizers that work. And that way you're protecting your kids and your pets and your lawn. Now, having said all that, if you have a bunch of patches of lawn weeds that you're really trying to eliminate, Agrolon is phenomenal for killing little spots of weeds. But a lot of the weeds we're seeing now, except for crabgrass and Dallas grass, they're really not going to be a long-term weed. They're going to go away pretty soon. And so as your kids kind of trample around the lawn, they're going to hurt those weed selections also. So keep that in mind, is most of the weeds are short-term. Dallas grass, crabgrass, basket grass, these are things that you need to deal with. And if you have them in small patches, that's where Agrolon is absolutely phenomenal on them. And it's perfectly safe for your lawn, your kids, your dogs, you know, your auntie, whoever might be playing in the lawn. So that is where that stuff comes in. Yeah.
Sure. Well, and also if there's constant foot traffic on the, you know, in the certain areas, he might consider just giving the grass a rest and maybe having the kids play in one area and let one area of the lawn kind of start coming back, because it sounds like it really, even with amendments and compost and all of that, if they're constantly trampling, it's going to be pretty rough on the lawn in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where the Humates comes in so nice, is that it loosens that soil up. But we do want to compliment you on getting your kids to play outside. Nothing could be better for them. So great job there, Tom. All right, moving on to the next question. Here we go. And, you know, keep in mind that we do want to answer your questions if you've got them on your mind. So put them in the comment there, and we will get to them for sure. All right, this is from Dante. So Dante's bottle brush is looking bad. What should he do? If it's dead, what should he replace it with? He'd like to stay pollinator friendly. So you've already given 2 great examples of great pollinator friendly ones, but how can he do a health check on the bottle brush? And if it's dead, what should he replace it with? This is a full size, by the way, full size bottle brush.
Okay. Yeah, I have heard that a lot of bottle brushes didn't make it. So with having said that, once again, doing the old scratch test on the branches to see if there is any green. You know, keep going down the branch, and maybe at some point there will be some green. If not, you might remove it and replace it with a native tree or large shrub, because they do get, the bottle brushes do get quite large. So the 2 examples I gave were really like small trees, but we have some great shrubs and especially native shrubs. But when you talk about pollinator friendly, I'm so glad that's on his list for sure. And the biggest thing with pollinators is protecting them and making sure that He's not using any synthetic or chemical pesticides, which which will definitely be a problem for any pollinator.
Hmm.
But some of the other ones that I like, so there's an oak leaf hydrangea, which is again native to East Texas. It's one of the hydrangeas that I can grow. I haven't had any luck with the regular good old southern hydrangeas, but the oak leaf hydrangeas are absolutely beautiful, and they do get quite tall. I think they might even get 6 feet tall, perhaps, but mine are getting quite large.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and I like them so well. I have three in the yard. They're just spectacular. Another one for an area that tends to be a little wet. There is a great one, another one of my all-time favorites, and that's a button bush. And the flowers on the button bush look like
Wait, hold on.
like little what?
I'm trying to guess maybe what they could be, what they could look like.
Oh, okay, okay,
That's the
guess.
name. Let me think about the name of the bush here. They look like little globes. No, I'm just kidding. I knew
They
what they
do.
look like already. Yeah.
They do like, yeah, with little spikes in them.
I was cheating.
Well, I hate to say this, but they kind of looks like a little COVID thing, little
Oh
ball
yeah,
thing with little,
yeah, little
yeah,
viruses.
I hate to say that, but yeah, they do. But they're white, and they're also they're also a host plant for several butterflies. So when you talk about pollinator friendly, and especially butterflies, it's important to have plants that support each stage of a butterfly's development. So it's not just the beautiful flowers that the butterflies get nectar from, but
Right.
also um, plants that they can lay their eggs on, and
Hmm.
the caterpillars can eat, and all of that good stuff. So okay, so that was my next two.
Oh, nice. Those were your next
Yeah.
two success survivor story. That's great.
Yes.
I will say, if I
Yes.
was talking to Dante, I would ask him if he liked his bottle brush tree, and if he said
Yes.
he did, I would just say go with that. That's a great
Oh,
plant,
totally.
and
Yes.
just
And I'm
that's
glad. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because so many people are now. It's kind of like when we had
drought.
the drought, right? And everybody ran out to get drought resistant plants. Same with this. Everybody wants to go get plants that don't freeze. But if you love, if how often is we going to get these freezes? Once is enough, right?
Sure.
However, but if you love a certain plant, my Duranta bit the dust, and it was
Right.
absolutely gorgeous, and it was
Mm.
like 6 feet tall, constantly covered with pollinators.
Mm.
So you can be sure I'm planting that guy again. So and people say who love a bird of paradise. If you love bird of paradise, then just go for it again. That's all gardening is. It's a passion that involves mistakes sometimes, successes sometimes. It's all
Right.
it's just a microcosm of what life is, right?
Yes, and that's well said. And the great thing is we get to interact with all these living things that we really don't control, but we get to affect them. And sometimes it does go
Exactly.
sideways. I really I love bottle brush trees. Love a lot of the stuff that you just said. One thing I can guarantee, folks, if you're watching, if you're listening, it's going to get really, really hot here before it gets freezing again. You know what I mean? And a lot of these zone 6 plants that people think they can grow here maybe won't
A
make our
great point.
summer. They just won't even
Yeah.
survive our summer. So it's like you got to just, keep in mind we are where we are. We are this subtropical place, and we had this blasting freeze, but we're going to have a very hot summer. That's what we do. And so keep that in mind as you're selecting new plants. Is a lot of these natives, they froze back to the ground, but they're coming back, and that's just what's so cool about them. So Dante, if you love the bottle brush tree, stick with the bottle brush. So I have a eucalyptus that I really, really loved. Huge tree, beautiful, and it died to about 2 feet down, and it's gonna come back, and I'm gonna let it come back because I really enjoyed the clippings of it, and making tinctures and all that stuff that come with having a tree that smells that good. So we're all in this together. I've said that before. This freeze was painful for a lot of us, and but don't give up the joy. Don't give up the plants that give you the joy. Okay, on to our next question here. And I'm keeping track. We've done 4 of your plants, 4 of your special plants. So this is from Willie.
Okay.
Willie, we'll have another live oak question after this, but Willie says, I have a live oak and some native shrubs. Butterfly bush? I guess he's not sure what his native shrubs are, and want to know how to take care of them. I'm a first-time homeowner gardener. Congratulations, Willie, on being a first-time homeowner. Here's some great advice on how to take care of your live oak. From you, Chris.
Cue Chris. Okay. Well, hopefully it was planted well in the first place, because that's so important.
Right. Absolutely.
And to make sure it's not planted too low. One major thing too is you want to be sure that when you mulch around your live oak, that you are not creating mulch volcanoes. We want to keep the mulch away from the bark, and really have the mulch come out quite a ways around the trunk to prevent compaction from anybody walking around in that area, and also to keep the lawnmower away from the bark. So really, if it's been newly planted, make sure to keep it watered through the summer, and you will absolutely adore your live oak.
Yeah, they're incredible trees for Houston because they're shady all year long. They drop their leaves now when it's cool and not too hot to rake up, not like when they're dropping them in September and you're all sweating it out there. And they're just beautiful, great shape, great climbing trees, and they're well adapted to clay soil. That's something that's really, really cool about them. When you do have compaction is when you have them putting their roots out further, their strong roots out further, and that's when you get them messing up sidewalks and driveways and home foundations. If you can keep their soil supple with mulch, with Humates Plus for Microlife, with great compost, you won't have that problem. You'll keep the soil open. The roots will kind of stay down. They would prefer to go down. When you have compaction is when they come up. And some other things that could cause compaction besides weather events might be some of those synthetic fertilizers. You want to use those with caution. Try to always use them along with some mulch or some compost. And also traffic, walking around down there, driving near them, things like that can sometimes make some compaction. So keep that in mind with your live oak. You make sure if you're planting something that you always plant it a little bit high. Things that are planted low, that's what kills them. When they're high, that's usually overcomable with mulch. So that's your live oak.
The butterfly bush, I'm assuming maybe it's a buddleia, do you think?
Oh, maybe. Maybe. I was thinking Hamelia.
Oh, okay.
That's hummingbird bush, though, isn't it?
Yeah. So if it's a buddleia, those are pretty tough. Same thing. Make sure it's not planted too low. Water it well, and I've seen some of those make it through mild freezes for sure. But they're quite beautiful.
Yeah, and their flowers are so spectacular. It's like a wizard's hat. It's so cool, so cool.
Oh,
yeah. And they are going to love fertilizer on a regular basis. Doing something with a little bit more nutritional kind of impact for them. So that might be the Maximum Blooms for Microlife. Dakota Rev would be great for your tree, loosening the soil, and for feeding those shrubs. What's your take on pruning live oaks? I know a lot of people spend a lot of time clearing out the middle. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that has proven to be kind of a fallacy about pruning out the middle. I think the thought is to prune it out so if we have a hurricane, the wind can kind of go through the spaces and not harm the tree. But in reality, the tree is very resilient, and as it's growing, it really can have enough flexibility to move with the wind. So yes, do not prune it out.
And that's one of the things that people will be like, well, my grass isn't growing under the tree, so I'm going to prune the tree. And I'm like, a big mature live oak can be $25,000 of property value, and that lawn is $900. You know what I mean? It's not even close.
Right.
And so don't adjust your big live oaks so your lawn's better.
Exactly.
There's
And
other
there's
things. So
Oh,
many.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
No,
Sure,
we were
there's
both
so
going the
many other-
same. Yeah, we were both going the exact same
direction,
place.
same path.
Yeah.
So many different things to grow under a live oak. It's a lot of ground covers, and one of the things that it's a native plant as well. It's called a carex, a carex. It's a kind of sedge, but the carex texensis is the little
Texas
native
sedge.
Texas. Thank you, Texas sedge, and they're like little clumps. They grow in little fuzzy clumps, and they're really quite tough. But they love the shade. The freeze did nothing to them. So and they're all different kinds of varieties of sedge besides the Texas sedge. So yeah, the ground covers a lot of different things that will that will be walkable too. You can walk over all of those as well.
Yeah. I mean, where better to put up a hammock or a picnic than under your live oak tree. So we do have a question that kind of came in from Joe about Indian hawthorn. So what's your approach on bringing those back? How do you think they're going to do?
I haven't had an Indian hawthorn in a long time, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what their status is at this point. But I guess the same thing is do the scratch test. If it's established, that might be a reason to wait a little bit longer and see if it starts greening up. But so that's. I've not seen any other Indian hawthorns, to be honest, right now.
Yeah, I generally, it may not be 100% true for yours, Joe, but generally they will come back from a freeze. And so you may start seeing a little bit of like green shoots coming up. I would reshape them and take about 4 inches off all the sides, including the top, just to get rid of a lot of those old leaves and some of those branches that got singed, and let the new growth come up and kind of take its place. If you don't have an electric hedge trimmer, it's a lot slower going with some clippers, but that is what I would do is kind of reshape them down smaller, let that green growth come in and be the bush instead of all of the dead branches that are up on top. So we have some of those at my daughter's house, and they're looking fine. We cut them back pretty quick, and they're kind of getting green and reshaping again. So, and I've been hosing them down with super seaweed and molasses to kind of keep black spot at bay. So that's the best thing to do with Indian hawthorns is make sure they're still alive. They should be putting up some new growth right now. If they're not, scratch test. If they are, give them a haircut.
Cool.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, it's gardening season, and so everybody is doing all kinds of stuff, and we're here to answer questions. So if you have any other questions, put it in the comment section. We're going to go to an awesome video with Sherry and talk to her a little bit about some other gardening tips. So here we go. Starting your vegetables from seed can be a lot less expensive than going to the store and buying them from plants. And almost any vegetable you can start from seed. The big exceptions are tomato, eggplant, and peppers.
Right.
So Sherry's brought some seeds for us and a tray to kind of teach us how to start our own seeds.
Right. So the first thing we need to look at when we're starting our seeds is the size of the seed. So as you can see, the corn here, big seed. Beans, a big seed. And then the peppers are a tiny little seed.
Yeah.
So the size of the pepper determines how deep we're going to plant them. So bigger seeds, we're going to put about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch. Poke it down in there.
So basically just so we can't see it anymore.
You got it. And then the pepper seeds, these tiny little seeds, we're just going to put on the soil and just right under the soil and cover them up. So a lot of people don't have success with seeds, and they get nervous with seeds because they plant them too deep and don't see them emerge.
I know people go to their second knuckle. You barely want to get these in the ground. You want them right at the top.
Right.
Things like lettuce and carrots that have tiny seeds, you maybe even are going to put them on top of the ground.
Absolutely. So after we have them planted, we need to give them a little dose
There's
of
the sprayer.
Seaweed, my favorite, Microlife Super Seaweed. And so I just keep the soil moist. And you want to keep the soil moist and with seaweed because that'll help break down the seed germ and help with germination.
And every plant, every seed takes a different amount of time to make a little plant from the seed. So you just got to be patient.
Right.
Yeah.
So in a few days, you'll have little plants coming up, and then before you know it, it's time to plant them.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
For more, go to HomeShowGardenPros.com. Well, great job, Sherry. And, get some seeds in now. Those ones she talked about are the ones to go with. Well, Chris, do you have any more of your special plants that made it through?
I do. A couple more of shrubs. That's okay. And then I'll go with a couple of perennials if we have time.
Ooh, definitely.
Okay. So, of course, American Beautyberry. That's
of course.
One of my favorites as well. Those gorgeous magenta berries that the birds absolutely adore, and people too.
Yeah. Have you ever eaten them? Have you ever eaten those?
Well, I guess the answer is yes, but in a jelly.
Okay.
I know. Yes.
I think they taste just like gin and tonic. And so one of these days, I'm going to muddle a bunch of them and just put some sparkling water in there. Well, just see what happens. Maybe I've made a mocktail. Maybe I need to make a little new syrup to give to all the
house.
Yeah, well, if I do that, for sure, you'll be the first one I tell.
Good.
But yeah, there's so many flavors. They kind of don't taste great, but if you get a good batch of them, it's kind of like, oh, this is sort of gin and tonic-y. So
yeah. Well, the jelly I tasted, it's not a really strong flavor, but it's just kind of a nice little sweet flavor that's great at on crackers and things like that, and making little hors d'oeuvres. Yeah,
I love crackers.
Pink color, so yes.
Hors d'oeuvres are fine. I really prefer appetizers. All right, what's your next plant?
Okay, so the next plant is the Virginia sweet spire, and I love those mainly because they get to be maybe not quite 4 feet tall, but they have these beautiful arching branches, and they have white clusters of white flowers in the spring, and also if it's an area where they can spread a little bit, they'll actually kind of spread on their own, not as a aggressive way like some plants, but they tolerate shade, and they're just really a very nice plant.
They really are. That's really one. I'm just going to chime in after everyone. Like I think all these are so great.
Please do.
But that's one that's like underused because it is just it can be pruned as a really like tidy hedge.
Yes.
I mean, this isn't one that has to be all wild grown. That really can be kept very tidy, and they spread underground a little bit, and so you're always kind of replenishing your hedge. Really cool plant.
Well, and also they've been hard to find in the trade for some reason. They've not been grown out. So, one hint: if you have a good relationship with your nursery, especially some of the wonderful private nurseries that you've mentioned, and if there is a plant that you are just dying to have, and I would talk to the nursery owner and see if they can track down the plant for you. And that has happened before. So just a little hint there for.
No, that's great. That's great. And we have someone asking a question here, Jeff, that he wants a hint to. And Jeff asked, and it's funny because we got an email along these lines recently, and the answer will be the same as here. But Jeff asks, do I need to till my flower bed every year? So go ahead.
Well, I believe the rule of thumb is not to till. And I'm assuming we're talking about really tilling the soil. When you go deep and till, you actually are bringing up more weed seeds and things like that, undesirables. So what I would do instead is clear the vegetation away, and amend it with compost and some, or you may need some an addition of an inch or two, which is what I did. Some really good garden soil, like Nature's Way carries, and then add an inch of about an inch of compost on top of that, and then do your planting right in that. So you end up with a really good medium for your plants to grow very healthy.
Nice.
So how'd I do?
That was great. That was great. I think a lot of people are giving up tilling. It's a lot of work, and you don't get a ton of impact from it. Data and research is kind of showing that it's not great. But, Jeff, if you've tilled every year and everything's looking good and all your plants are always perfect, hey, keep going. That's a great thing about gardening is there's not just one way to do it. There's
Exactly.
it's people's choice,
Exactly.
gardener's choice, if you will. Okay,
Exactly.
well, so we're doing great on time. We've had a nice long run, but you have a couple more plants?
I do. So we'll go into some perennials.
Ooh.
One thing I want to mention really quickly though, I have several camellias,
Okay.
and they're not native, obviously, but they came through just great.
Yeah, totally fine.
So,
Right.
just totally fine. So one of my favorites is it's called Gaura, Gaura.
Yeah,
It's a
nice.
beautiful, yeah. It's also called whirling butterflies because the little flowers, especially it does now come in several shades of pink, but the native one has little white flowers that look like tiny little butterflies. So seen from a distance, it looks like there's just this whole whirl of butterflies.
Whirling. With the H.
Whirl, yes.
No, it's so cool.
Whirl.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I remember the first time I saw it, I literally was like, what is that plant? It's got butterflies on it.
Yes.
And they're like,
yes.
oh,
you.
you.
You can see it across the yard. And it likes the sun. It's actually, native to our prairies. So, summer, hey, it just laughs at it, right?
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah. So then another one that I've found, it's called skullcap. And the one I found a couple years ago is kind of like a hot pink color, but that seems to just really, it was in full sun, it bloomed from spring right into fall and made it through the freeze. The top froze back, but the roots are coming up. So,
that's awesome.
and another one that is just the toughest plant, and it's called Gaillardia. And I think its common name is Indian blanket. One reason I bring this up is I remember during the drought, and I'd be driving down the highway, and there's Gaillardia growing on the side of the freeway.
Wow.
Now, if it can grow through that kind of situation, so it's good in my book, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It has that nice red orange center and a wonderful native plant.
It's going to extend as a annual that comes back every year too. Really cool stuff.
Yes.
Chris, great advice. Great advice. I think those are wonderful, and I definitely can't wait to kind of watch back through and make a list because I'm looking to put a bunch of plants that are going to do just what we're talking about into the front lawn. So replacing a few citrus.
And maybe we can come up with a list that can post on the website.
Oh yeah, we like websites.
Have a go-to. Yeah,
we like lists. Yeah, awesome.
Yes.
Well, thanks, Chris. Great job.
Yeah.
If you're out
Thanks
there
for having me back
in the area, go to Houston Botanic Gardens. Go check out Armand Bayou. Definitely, the Master Gardener program is phenomenal, and of course, happy to have you back. We will definitely get you back again. This has been HomeShow Garden Pros, and check us out this weekend, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Sports Radio 610. We will be talking gardening with Sherry Harris. She'll be there from Plants for All Seasons. So hope you tune in, and good luck gardening this week.